it's been an absolutely hellish situation for children since this crisis began. And the polio campaign, or the risk of a polio outbreak, was the latest dark chapter in this terrorizing journey for children. And polio is a disease that spreads very quickly. It's a virus that is highly contagious. The polio 2 type, which was found in the sewages of Gaza, is extremely contagious. So it can spread very rapidly and go across borders. It does not respect walls or barbed wire or geographical borders. And that's what we feared was going to happen if we didn't act. But we did, and we're on the ground, and we are on the 7th day of this campaign, and we are managing to vaccinate more children than we had expected. So it's going very well under catastrophic conditions. So waterborne diseases will and are spreading as well across the Gaza Strip because of untreated sewage and the destruction of water and hygiene infrastructure. And that is a problem that has been going on for months and will continue to go on. We need a ceasefire, so we don't see those scenes anymore, or we don't hear about an 11-month-old baby who got polio too and is forever impacted by it. It's an illness that will debilitate him, will impair him, and he was born into it almost. He was born a month before the war started, but he was already born into hardship. But until then, Gaza had 99% vaccination rates. That's almost every single child in Gaza, across the Gaza Strip, was vaccinated. There were routine immunization programs. There was no polio for 25 years. And now there is. And an 11-month-old baby is compromised for life. And outside the vaccination zones, children are still at risk. The war hasn't ended. We need a ceasefire. But this crisis has been very different from anything I've ever worked on. And I've been working with emergencies for over 15 years at Unicef. And I've seen from famine threats to wars to civil war. But the magnitude, the implications, the context, the impact of this war in the last 10 months on children in a place where population density is extremely high, one of the highest in the world. And half the population are children. So this very quickly became a war on children, as we've said. And Gaza became a graveyard for children. So that in itself summarizes what has been happening for the last 10 months. It has been a war on children, turning Gaza into a graveyard for children. Not only because of airstrikes and fighting and bombings, but also because of disease, lack of nutrition and food and water. So it's the perfect terrible storm for children across the Gaza Strip. It's a ceasefire. We need the guns to go silent. We need the fighting to stop. We need the airstrikes to stop. We need less violence and military operations on the ground and more humanitarian aid getting through into Gaza from different humanitarian corridors, open more humanitarian corridors. We have less going in now than we had at any time in this crisis when children are actually still paying the highest price. So what we need is a ceasefire. And a story that really stayed with me right at the beginning of the crisis, it was the first time a very dark story hit me. It was about a boy called Omar who lost both his parents and his sibling in an airstrike. I think he was maybe 3 months into the war. And he was at a health center, and Unicef was there also providing psychosocial support because that child is traumatized and just survived the strike and lost actually one of his limbs. So he was an amputee child who lost his whole family and was being given the news of all that. And he kept closing his eyes while people were telling him the story and trying to digest that. And his bravery or moment of absolute shock, trauma, and maybe wisdom, he said, I'm closing my eyes because I want to keep the image of my family, of my parents in my mind, so I don't forget how they look.